Thank you, member. The member for North Vancouver, Lonsdale.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. I am pleased to have this opportunity to respond to the member from West Vancouver, Capilano, on this very important topic. I'd like to begin by asking a question. Is a steelhead a salmon or a trout? At one time considered a trout species, steelhead have been discovered by biologists to be more closely related to the Pacific salmon than other trout. A steelhead that doesn't decide to go into the ocean and instead sticks around in freshwater, however, is known as a rainbow trout. If you're more than a little confused, don't worry, you're not the only one. In fact, this confusion is part of the reason why it is one of only 6, or the only one of the 6 Pacific salmon species that falls primarily under provincial jurisdiction, because it was once considered a freshwater trout. Steelheads are part of the beautiful, complex, dynamic ecosystem that makes BC such an incredible place to live, contributing to the biodiversity that sustains life on this planet. It is of utmost importance to our economy, driving sport, fishing, and serving as an important food source for First Nations and other people. Unfortunately, humans have had a devastating effect on many of our wildlife species, and the steelhead is absolutely no exception. While species do become endangered or extinct through the natural ebb and flow of nature, human activity, in particular development or resource extraction activities that result in the loss of habitat for wildlife and plant life, has had an accelerating effect in many ways that have had unpredictable and devastating consequences. The loss of one species can result in the loss of many more, or the overproliferation of another. We can attempt to compensate for these losses with further human intervention, but the results, unfortunately, have been also unpredictable. The bottom line is that our activities have toppled the delicate balancing act that has been managed by Mother Earth for arguably billions of years. Still, we must do our best to manage the consequences of our actions, and this is why governments must work carefully to manage activities that impact species like steelheads. Many steelhead populations have suffered significant declines in recent decades, with some now approaching extinction, as the honourable member for West Vancouver Capilano has already said. Or they are otherwise very reliant on ongoing hatchery production, which, again, the member for West Vancouver Capilano has identified is not always as successful as we would like. The once famed Thompson and Chicotlin River steelhead are in a state of extreme conservation concern. Our current spawning population forecast for these stocks is now 215, the lowest on record and at risk of a complete wipeout. One of my constituents, Squamish Nation member Barry Cordocedo, has been working on the issue of fish habitat rehabilitation for his entire adult life. As an employee of the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, Barry worked in the Fisheries and Oceans Enforcement Branch before moving on to becoming a Fisheries and Oceans Community Advisor, where he interacted with Indigenous and non-Indigenous communities to facilitate salmon recovery plans. Barry is now retired, but he continues to advocate for the rehabilitation of fish habitat and fish populations. In particular, he has been pushing for increased funding for this work through the Federal Community Economic Development Program. Barry emphasizes that the importance of salmon habitat and population recovery programs are important not only to the fish species, but also as a part of our work towards reconciliation with First Nations. Barry says that federal community economic development programs aimed at protecting and rehabilitating fish populations can also be used by First Nations to bring jobs to families, develop skills and capacity within their people, and empower young Indigenous peoples to take control of their lives, connect with their land, and bring economic prosperity to their communities. We must preserve our biodiversity. Biodiversity is a key not only to preserving environments and wildlife in BC, but indeed preservation of life across the planet. The loss of even one species because of humans has a devastating effect that cannot be measured. Thank you again to the member for West Vancouver Capilano for bringing up this extremely important topic.